Professor Zilkshnara nervously adjusted her tentacles as she glanced at the clock on the wall of the Galactic University's lecture hall. It was almost time for the new transfer student to arrive, and she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been growing in her stomach since she'd first received the notification. A human. They were getting a human student. She turned to her colleague, Professor Kraz, whose exoskeleton clicked softly as he organized his datapad. "Have you ever taught a Deathworlder before?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kraz's compound eyes flickered with uncertainty. "No, but I've heard stories. They say humans are unpredictable." Before Zilksnara could respond, the door to the lecture hall slid open with a soft hiss. The entire class fell silent as a figure strode in, radiating an aura of barely contained energy that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. The human was tall by galactic standards, with a frame that looked simultaneously fragile and densely packed with muscle. Its skin was a patchwork of scars and strange markings that Zilksnara would later learn were called tattoos. But it was the eyes that truly unsettled her, deep, dark pools that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Sorry I'm late," the human said, its voice a low rumble that sent shivers through the assembled alien students. "Name's Jack Cooper. Where should I sit?" Zilksnara gestured weakly to an empty seat in the front row, trying to keep her tentacles from trembling. As Jack settled in, she couldn't help but notice the way the other students leaned away, creating a bubble of empty space around the human. Welcome, Student Cooper," she managed to say. "We were just about to begin our lecture on advanced galactic warfare tactics. Today's topic is planetary siege strategies." Jack's eyes lit up with interest, and Zilksnara felt a flutter of hope. Perhaps this wouldn't be so bad after all. Humans were known for their martial prowess. Surely he would appreciate the intricacies of siege warfare. "Now," she continued, gaining confidence, "the first step in any successful planetary siege is to establish a blockade. This can take anywhere from several galactic standard months to years, depending on the planet's resources and defensive capabilities. The goal is to slowly starve the population into submission while minimizing casualties on both sides." She was about to move on to the next slide when Jack's hand shot up. "Yes, Student Cooper?" she asked, trying to keep the nervousness out of her voice. "With all due respect, Professor," Jack said, leaning forward with a predatory grin. "That's a load of bantha poodoo." A collective gasp rippled through the classroom. Zilksnara's tentacles curled in shock. I beg your pardon?" Jack stood up, his massive frame towering over the desk. "You want to take a planet? You hit it hard, hit it fast, and you don't stop until they're begging for mercy or there's nothing left to fight over." He began to pace, his movements reminding Zilksnara of a caged predator. "First, you take out their orbital defenses with a coordinated strike. Missiles, energy weapons, whatever you've got. While they're reeling from that, you drop your ground forces right on top of their most vital strategic locations. Government buildings, military installations, power plants, anything that could help them organize a resistance." The human's eyes gleamed with a fervor that sent chills down Zilksnara's spine. "And here's the kicker. You make sure they know you're coming. Psychological warfare is half the battle. By the time your boots hit the ground, they should be so terrified that half of them have already surrendered." Professor Kraz, who had been silent until now, spoke up. But what about civilian casualties? The infrastructure damage? The ethical considerations?" Jack turned to face the insectoid professor, his expression softening slightly. "With all due respect, sir, in war, there are no civilians. Everyone's a potential combatant. As for infrastructure, well, that's what makes my method more humane in the long run. A quick, decisive victory means less overall destruction than a drawn-out siege." He paused, looking around the room at the horrified faces of his alien classmates. "Look, I get it. This probably sounds brutal to you, but where I come from, this is just Tuesday. Humanity's been fighting wars like this for millennia. We've gotten pretty good at it." Zilksnara felt her tentacles go limp with shock. She had known humans were formidable warriors, but this casual disregard for life and property was beyond anything she had imagined. "Student Cooper," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "are you suggesting that this is normal for your species?" Jack shrugged, a gesture that looked almost comical coming from his massive frame. Normal? I guess you could say that. We've had our share of long drawn-out conflicts, sure, but when push comes to shove, we prefer to end things quickly and decisively. He turned to address the class, his voice taking on a lecturing tone that would have been amusing if the subject matter wasn't so terrifying. You see, the problem with your approach is that it gives the enemy time to adapt, to find weaknesses in your strategy. Humanity learned a long time ago that the key to victory is overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. A Floraxian student in the back, their petals quivering with a mix of fear and fascination, raised a tendril. But what about diplomacy? Surely there are peaceful solutions. Jack's laugh was like thunder rolling across the classroom. Diplomacy? Oh, we try that first, don't get me wrong. But here's a little secret. Diplomacy works a lot better when the other side knows exactly what you're capable of doing if negotiations break down. He turned back to Zilksnara, his expression softening slightly. I apologize if I've disrupted your lecture, Professor. I just thought it was important to provide a different perspective. Zilksnara found herself at a loss for words. Everything she had prepared, all the carefully crafted lessons on the ethics of warfare and the importance of minimizing casualties, seemed woefully inadequate in the face of this human's stark pragmatism. I think perhaps we should take a short break, she managed to say, her tentacles curling protectively around her torso. When we return, we'll discuss the various approaches to planetary conquest in more detail. As the alien students filed out of the room, giving Jack a wide berth, Zilksnara couldn't help but notice the gleam of excitement in some of their eyes. It was a look she had seen before, the thrill of encountering a new, potentially dangerous idea. She turned to Professor Kraz, who looked as shaken as she felt. What have we gotten ourselves into? She whispered. Kraz's mandibles clicked nervously. I'm not sure, he replied, but I have a feeling our curriculum is about to undergo some significant revisions. As they watched Jack casually stroll out of the classroom, leaving a wake of awed and terrified students in his path, Zilksnara couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change in ways she could scarcely imagine. Over the next few weeks, Jack's presence continued to disrupt the carefully ordered world of the Galactic University. His unconventional ideas and seemingly cavalier attitude towards violence sent shockwaves through the academic community. In Professor Alexia's Ethics of Interspecies Diplomacy class, Jack caused an uproar by suggesting that the best way to ensure lasting peace was to demonstrate overwhelming military superiority. It's like having a big stick, he explained to his horrified classmates. You don't have to use it. You just have to make sure everyone knows you've got it. During a practical exercise in starship tactics, Jack's simulated fleet annihilated the opposition in a matter of minutes, using strategies that the alien instructors deemed recklessly aggressive and bordering on war crimes. When questioned about his methods, Jack simply shrugged and said, "You play to win, or you don't play at all." But it wasn't all chaos and controversy. Some of the more militaristic species, like the Krovak and the Zenthari, found themselves oddly drawn to Jack's ideas. They began to seek him out between classes, peppering him with questions about human military history and tactics. Zilksnara watched all of this with growing concern. She couldn't deny that Jack was brilliant in his own way, but his influence on the other students worried her. More than once, she overheard conversations in the hallways that made her tentacles curl in dismay. Did you hear what the humans said about orbital bombardment? It's so simple yet so effective. I never thought about using civilian populations as a strategic resource before. It's horrifying, but it makes a certain kind of sense. Maybe we've been too soft all these years. What if the humans are right? As the end of the term approached, Zilksnara knew she had to do something. She couldn't let Jack's ideas spread unchallenged throughout the galaxy. And so, with no small amount of trepidation, she scheduled a private meeting with the human student. Jack arrived at her office precisely on time, his massive frame barely fitting through the door designed for beings of more average galactic size. "You wanted to see me, Professor?" he asked, settling into a chair that creaked ominously under his weight. Zilksnara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was sure to be a difficult conversation. "Yes, Student Cooper. I wanted to discuss your unique perspective on galactic warfare. Jack nodded, his expression unreadable. I figured this was coming. Look, Professor, I know my ideas are probably pretty shocking to you and the other teachers. But where I come from, this is just how we think about conflict. That's precisely what concerns me, Zilksnara said, her tentacles twisting anxiously. Your casual approach to violence, your disregard for established ethical norms, it's having an effect on the other students, an effect that frankly terrifies me. To her surprise, Jack's expression softened. I understand, Professor, really I do, but you have to understand something about humans. We've been fighting wars for our entire history, not because we want to, but because we've had to. He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Earth isn't like most of the worlds in the Galactic Federation. It's not a paradise. It's not even particularly hospitable by galactic standards. We've had to fight for every inch of ground, every scrap of resources, and not just against each other, against our own planet. Zilksnara found herself fascinated despite her misgivings. What do you mean? Earth is what we call a death world, Jack explained. Extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, natural disasters, you name it. We've got it. Every day is a struggle for survival. So when it comes to conflict, we don't have the luxury of drawn-out sieges or purely ethical warfare. We fight to win because the alternative is extinction. He paused, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. But here's the thing, Professor. That same drive to survive, that same intensity we bring to warfare, we apply it to everything. Science, art, exploration. When humanity puts its mind to something, we don't stop until we've mastered it. Zilksnara felt her perspective shifting as she listened to Jack's words. She had always thought of humans as simply violent and unpredictable, but now she was beginning to see a deeper complexity to their nature. So, what you're saying, she said slowly, is that your approach to warfare is just one facet of a larger survival strategy. Jack nodded eagerly. Exactly. And here's the kicker. Now that we're part of the galactic community, we're starting to apply that same intensity to diplomacy and cooperation. We're learning, adapting, but we can't just forget millennia of ingrained survival instincts overnight. He leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. Maybe instead of trying to change us, the galaxy could learn something from humanity. Not our violence, but our drive, our adaptability. Combine that with the wisdom and ethics of older species like yours. Who knows what we could accomplish together? Zilksnara found herself at a loss for words. She had called this meeting intending to reprimand Jack, perhaps even recommend his removal from the university. Instead, she found herself considering possibilities she had never imagined before. I need to think about this, she said finally. You've given me a lot to consider, Student Cooper. Jack stood up, offering her a smile that was surprisingly gentle. That's all I ask, Professor. And hey, if you ever want to learn more about human history or culture, I'd be happy to teach you. Fair warning, though, some of it might keep you up at night. As he left her office, Zilksnara realized that her view of the galaxy, and humanity's place in it, had been irrevocably changed. She wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not, but one thing was certain. With humans now part of the galactic community, the future promised to be anything but boring. In the months that followed, the Galactic University, and indeed the entire Galactic Federation, found itself grappling with the implications of humanity's inclusion in their ranks. Jack Cooper's presence had been just the beginning, a harbinger of the changes to come. More human students arrived, each bringing their own unique perspectives and challenging long-held beliefs. The academic community was simultaneously thrilled and terrified by the influx of new ideas, many of which seemed to fly in the face of centuries of established galactic wisdom. Zilksnara, much to her own surprise, found herself at the forefront of this intellectual revolution. Her conversations with Jack had sparked a fascination with human culture and history that she couldn't ignore. She began offering a new course, Human Studies, Understanding the Deathworlders. The class was controversial from the start. Some faculty members argued that it glorified violence and aggression, while others saw it as a necessary step towards true galactic integration. Students from across the galaxy clamored to enroll, eager to learn more about these strange, terrifying, yet oddly compelling new members of the Federation. Zilksnara's lectures covered everything from human warfare tactics to their art, literature, and philosophy. She brought in human guest speakers, scientists, soldiers, artists, and diplomats, to provide first-hand accounts of life on Earth. One day, during a particularly heated discussion on the ethics of human warfare, a Zenthari student raised a thorny question. "But Professor, if humans are so adept at violence, how can we trust them not to turn on the rest of the galaxy?" Before Zilksnara could respond, Jack, who had become something of a teaching assistant for the course, stepped forward. "That's a fair question," he said, his voice serious. "The truth is, you can't trust us completely, just like we can't fully trust you. Trust has to be earned, on both sides." He paced in front of the class, his movements controlled but intense. "But here's what you need to understand about humans. Yes, we're good at fighting. We've had to be. But we're even better at adapting, at finding new solutions to problems. Right now, our problem is figuring out how to be part of this amazing, diverse galactic community without losing what makes us unique." Jack's eyes swept across the classroom, meeting the gaze of each student. "We don't want to fight you. We want to learn from you, to work with you. But we also want you to understand us, to see that our strength, our intensity, our drive, these aren't just weapons. They're tools that can be used to build, to explore, to create." Zilksnara felt a swell of pride as she watched her students, human and alien alike, nod in understanding. It wasn't agreement, not yet, but it was a start. As the term came to a close, Zilksnara received a surprising invitation. The Galactic Council, intrigued by reports of her groundbreaking course, had requested her presence at their next assembly. They wanted her to speak on the integration of humanity into galactic society. As she prepared her presentation, Zilksnara reflected on how much her perspective had changed in such a short time. She had gone from fearing humanity to becoming one of their strongest advocates in the academic community. It was a transformation she never could have predicted. The day of the Galactic Council meeting arrived, and Zilksnara found herself standing before the most powerful beings in the known universe. Her tentacles quivered with nervous energy as she began to speak. "Esteemed members of the Council," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I come before you today to discuss a topic that has caused great concern and controversy throughout our Federation: the integration of humanity into our galactic society." She paused, looking around at the assembled aliens. Some looked curious, others wary, and a few seemed openly hostile. Zilksnara took a deep breath and continued. "When the first human students arrived at our university, I, like many others, was terrified. Their casual approach to violence, their intense competitiveness, their seemingly reckless disregard for established norms, all of these things painted a picture of a species that could pose a grave threat to galactic peace." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Zilksnara held up a tentacle for silence. "But as I spent more time studying and interacting with humans, I came to a startling realization. What we perceive as aggression and violence is, in fact, a highly adapted survival mechanism. Humanity comes from a world that is hostile beyond our comprehension. Their entire history has been a struggle against forces that would have wiped out most species." She activated a holographic display, showing images of Earth's most extreme environments: raging hurricanes, erupting volcanoes, arid deserts, and frozen tundras. "This is the crucible in which humanity was forged," Zilksnara explained. "Every day of their existence has been a fight for survival. Is it any wonder, then, that they approach problems, including warfare, with such intensity?" The council members leaned forward, their expressions a mix of fascination and lingering concern. "But here's what truly sets humans apart," Zilksnara continued, her voice growing passionate. "They have taken this drive to survive and applied it to every aspect of their existence: their scientific advancements, their art, their capacity for empathy and cooperation. All of these are products of the same evolutionary pressures that made them such formidable warriors." She brought up new images: human medical facilities, space exploration missions, works of art, and scenes of interspecies cooperation. "In the short time they've been part of our galactic community, humans have already made significant contributions. Their unique perspective has led to breakthroughs in fields ranging from medicine to space exploration. Their adaptability and creativity have opened up new avenues of research that we never even considered. Zilxnara paused, looking around the chamber. She could see that she had their attention now, even if not all were convinced. "I'm not here to tell you that integrating humanity into our society will be easy," she said, her voice softening. "There will be challenges, misunderstandings, perhaps even conflicts. But I am here to tell you that the potential benefits far outweigh the risks." She brought up one final image, a group photo from her human studies class, showing students of various species laughing and working together, with Jack Cooper in the center, his arm around a Xanthari classmate. "This is the future I see for our galaxy," Zilxnara said, her voice filled with hope. "A future where we don't just tolerate our differences, but celebrate them. Where we combine the wisdom of ancient species with the drive and innovation of younger ones. Where humanity's intensity is tempered by our ethics, and our caution is balanced by their boldness." She looked directly at the council leaders, her tentacles spread wide in a gesture of openness. "The question before us is not whether we should fear humanity, but how we can work with them to create a stronger, more vibrant galactic community. I believe that by embracing this challenge, we have the opportunity to usher in a new golden age of peace, discovery, and cooperation." As Zilxnara concluded her speech, the council chamber erupted in a mix of applause, heated discussions, and thoughtful silence. She knew that she hadn't convinced everyone, but she had given them something to think about. As she left the podium, a human diplomat approached her, a look of gratitude on his face. "Professor Zilxnara," he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "On behalf of Earth, I want to thank you for your words today. You've given us hope that we can truly find a place in this incredible galactic community." Zilxnara hesitated for just a moment before reaching out one of her tentacles to shake the human's hand. "The path forward won't be easy," she said, "but I believe it will be worth it." As they parted, Zilxnara couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement about the future. The galaxy was changing, and she was playing a part in shaping that change. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly fascinating, much like humanity itself. In the years that followed, Zilxnara's predictions proved to be largely accurate. The integration of humanity into the Galactic Federation was not without its challenges. There were cultural clashes, diplomatic incidents, and more than a few close calls that nearly escalated into interstellar conflicts. But there were also triumphs beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Human scientists, working alongside alien colleagues, made breakthrough discoveries at an unprecedented rate. Human artists introduced new forms of expression that captivated audiences across the stars. And when a threat from outside the known galaxy emerged, it was a combined force of human tactical brilliance and alien technology that saved countless worlds from destruction. Zilxnara continued her work at the Galactic University, watching with pride as each new class of students, human and alien alike, graduated and went out into the universe, carrying with them the understanding and mutual respect that she had worked so hard to foster. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, she would think back to that first day when Jack Cooper had strode into her classroom, upending everything she thought she knew about warfare, survival, and the nature of intelligence itself. She would smile to herself, her tentacles curling in amusement, and whisper a quiet thank you to the universe for sending such a wonderful, terrifying, brilliant species to shake up the galactic status quo. The story of humanity's integration into the galactic community was far from over. But thanks to pioneers like Zilxnara and Jack, it was a story filled with hope, challenge, and the promise of a future more incredible than anyone could have imagined. As news of Zilxnara's speech spread across the galaxy, it sparked a wave of curiosity about humanity. Universities across different worlds began offering their own versions of human studies courses. Diplomatic exchanges between Earth and other planets increased, with aliens eager to visit the Deathworld that had produced such a fascinating species. Jack Cooper, now graduated, found himself in high demand as a consultant and cultural ambassador. He traveled from world to world, giving lectures on human history and culture, always emphasizing the importance of mutual understanding and cooperation. One day, several years after his graduation, Jack returned to the Galactic University as a guest lecturer for Zilksnara's advanced seminar. As he entered the familiar lecture hall, he couldn't help but smile at the diverse group of students before him. A mix of species he couldn't have imagined when he first arrived as a brash, overconfident human cadet. "Welcome, everyone," he began, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Today we're going to talk about something that's at the very core of human nature, something that's shaped our approach to everything from warfare to scientific discovery. We're going to talk about adaptation." As Jack launched into his lecture, Zilksnara watched from the back of the room, her heart's swelling with pride. She knew that the galaxy was still adapting to humanity's presence, still learning to navigate the complex dance of interspecies relations. But looking at the eager faces of her students, human and alien alike, she felt a profound sense of hope for the future. The story of humanity and the Galactic Federation was still being written, with each day bringing new challenges and triumphs. But one thing was certain: it was going to be one hell of a ride.